So, Kira, last week we had secretaries of state from all over the country meet in Washington, D.C. One of the things that you talk about in your article on Think Progress that they could have done was officially denounce, officially say it's not true. Donald Trump's lie that 3 to 5 million illegal voters helped to swing the popular vote towards Hillary Clinton. And they failed to do that. They wouldn't stand up and say that, no, this isn't true. To me, that is absolutely remarkable that they would not publicly come out and say this.
Yeah, that's correct. And the fact of the matter is that, sadly, in our country, voting and the right to vote has become a political issue. And we saw that last week at the National Association of Secretaries of State's annual convention. It's the one time a year that almost all 50 elections chiefs from all 50 states are together in one room to discuss and plan and think about how to run elections better in the future. And at one point during the convention, Alex Padilla, who is the Secretary of State from California, introduced a resolution which would, in effect, publicly denounce Trump's claim that 3 to 5 million people cast illegal ballots. It's something that he and most of the other Democratic secretaries of state said that they should all use their platform to tell the American public that, listen, these claims are false and they're dangerous and they're going to lead to restrictive voting laws. And unfortunately, because a majority of the secretaries of state in this country right now are Republicans, they blocked his effort to even introduce that resolution. And there was no chance for the election chiefs to even vote to pass that resolution.
You know, it's really kind of disgusting, I guess, is the word I would use. When you look at what's happening right now in the United States, especially in this issue of voting, Republicans are so beholden to party lines, beholden to this commander-in-chief that just happens to be a member of their party because it was politically expedient for him to be that way. Mm-hmm. They will not stand up to him, even on something that is so verifiably, demonstrably false. I mean, from what we've seen so far, there is no evidence that would even suggest anything close to Trump's claim of 3 to 5 million illegal people voting. I mean, is that correct?
Exactly. And Donald Trump is no expert on voting. I mean, he doesn't claim to know this issue very well. He's just propagating this lie from the White House. But these 50 secretaries of state are experts, and this is what they work on day in and day out. So the fact that the Republicans are kind of bowing over and saying, listen, this is our president, we have to listen to what he says, even when the facts in each state show that the number could not be anywhere near to the 3 to 5 million claim that he makes, is pretty revealing.
Well, and so Alabama's Republican, obviously, Secretary of State, he kind of agrees with Donald Trump. He believes that we had these illegal voters. He said that that's what, gave Hillary Clinton the state of New Hampshire. How exactly, this is part of the story I don't quite understand in the minds of these Republicans. How does this voting scam work? Where do these illegal voters come from in the state of New Hampshire in large enough numbers to hand the state to Hillary Clinton? I get that they're out there lying about it. I just don't understand logistically how you could even pull off such a massive scam in the United States.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is that you definitely could not. And if people were attempting to do something on that scale, we would know about it. And if not the general public, these secretaries of state no doubt would know about it. So when I asked Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill about voter fraud and why he thinks it's so necessary to pass restrictive laws like voter ID laws in order to prevent this so-called problem, he told me that in his state of Alabama, he's only identified 304 potential cases of fraud since he took office in 2015. And an even smaller number of those ended with convictions. But he and other Republican secretaries of state like to push this line that if we know about this number, who knows how many more there could be.
Well, it's interesting, too, because Jeff Sessions, during his time as Alabama Secretary of State, I believe he was Secretary of State, but he pursued voter fraud charges, well over 100 cases. Again, I forget the exact number, but not a single conviction out of any one of those cases that Jeff Sessions in Alabama had to come after. So this obviously is not something new. It's something Republicans have been, trying to make a case for decades now. And there's still just as little evidence today as there was back in the 1980s.
Right, that's true. Yeah, I believe Jeff Sessions was the Attorney General in Alabama.
Attorney General, that's right.
Yeah, that's correct.
And so, okay, 304 potential cases in Alabama, a few convictions here and there. But like you said, because we know that it happened in small numbers, who's to say that it didn't happen in larger numbers? That's the kind of logic we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I spoke to New Hampshire Secretary of State, who is actually a Democrat. So I was a little bit surprised by the response he gave me. And I presented him with what all of these other elections officials were saying occurred in his state. The claims from the White House and from Alabama's John Merrill that thousands of people were bussed into New Hampshire and cast illegal votes. And instead of using his position to vocally and loudly denounce that claim and to say, listen, in New Hampshire, we ran a free and fair election, he told me that he welcomes investigators to come into New Hampshire and to see if there's any basis to this narrative of busing and false votes. And he actually told me his direct quote was, people say that if you get picked up for a DWI, you've probably done it at least 10 times, maybe more. So he was telling me that if he's seen a few cases of voter fraud, he doesn't really know how many cases might exist. He has no way to quantify it.
And so, again, I still have to wonder, suppose, let me put my mind in the brain head of a Republican. Suppose this is true. We had this massive conspiracy in the United States. People paid for buses. They picked out individuals from other states to get on these buses, drive these buses to New Hampshire, and make sure that all of these people, I guess, somehow had a name that matched someone else in the state of New Hampshire to go in and vote for Hillary Clinton.
Well, New Hampshire does have same-day registration. So the claim is that these people were coming in and using their out-of-state IDs to register in New Hampshire on the day of the election and to vote.
Okay.
But in order to do that, they would have to prove that they were New Hampshire residents. So it's pretty inconceivable to think that all of these buses were coming in. And I spoke to Ellen Weintraub, who's a commissioner at the FEC right now, this morning, and she told me that if these buses were being used to send in voters from Massachusetts and other nearby states, someone has to be paying for it, and she would have had to see receipts, and that never happened.
Well, as Republicans say, it was obviously George Soros, probably most likely. I mean,
Right.
He's paying all these protesters. My God, that man, has to be writing 100,000 checks a day just to keep up with it at this point.